How to Control Your Mind and Emotions. Written and published by Mindset Masters Audiobook. Part 1. The Hidden War Inside Your Mind. Every human being lives with two realities. The first is the world outside. People, situations, problems, opportunities, pressure, chaos, success, and failure. The second is the world inside. Thoughts, emotions, reactions, impulses, fears, memories, desires, and belief. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the outside world while ignoring the only place real control has ever existed, the mind. You do not lose control of your life because the world is difficult. You lose control because your mind reacts automatically instead of intentionally. This book begins by revealing a truth few people are ever taught. Your thoughts are not you. Your emotions are not you. But if you do not learn to control them, they will control your entire life. Why your mind feels out of control. Your mind was never designed to make you happy. It was designed to keep you alive. This is the root of emotional chaos. Your brain constantly scans for danger, rejection, loss, embarrassment, uncertainty, and pain. When it detects even a possibility of threat, it reacts instantly, often without logic, balance, or long-term thinking. That reaction becomes anxiety, overthinking, anger, fear, jealousy, shame, emotional exhaustion. The mind does not ask whether these reactions are helpful. It only asks whether they feel protective. Understanding this changes everything. You stop blaming yourself. You stop feeling broken. You stop believing something is wrong with you. Instead, you realize you are untrained, not flawed. The illusion of emotional control. Most people believe controlling emotions means suppressing them. That belief destroys mental strength. Suppression does not create control. Suppression creates pressure. And pressure always finds a way out, through explosions, breakdowns, burnout, impulsive decisions, or self-sabotage. True emotional control is not about forcing yourself to feel nothing. It is about observing without obeying. It is about choosing your response instead of being dragged by reaction. The autopilot problem. Your mind runs on autopilot more than you realize. Patterns formed in childhood, reinforced through experience, and repeated daily now operate silently in the background. You don't choose. What thought appears first? What emotion arises initially? What memory surfaces? What fear gets triggered? Those things happen automatically. What is under your control is what happens next. Most people never learn this distinction, so they believe, I am angry. I am anxious. I am overwhelmed. But the truth is, I am experiencing anger. I am experiencing anxiety. I am experiencing overwhelm. That difference is power. The space between trigger and response. Between what happens to you and how you react, there is a space. In that space lives choice, discipline, emotional intelligence, mental strength. Most people never enter that space. They react instantly. Control begins the moment you learn to pause inside that space. Not to judge. Not to suppress. Not to analyze endlessly. Just to pause. That pause breaks emotional slavery. Why emotions feel so overwhelming? Emotions feel overwhelming because they are physical before they are mental. Your body reacts first. Heart rate changes. Muscles tighten. Breathing shift. Hormones release. By the time your mind becomes aware, the emotion already feels powerful. This is why telling yourself to calm down rarely works. You don't calm emotions with words. You calm them with regulation. Control starts in the body, then moves to the mind. Emotional intelligence is not soft, it is strategic. Controlling your emotions does not make you weak. It makes you dangerous in the best way. People who cannot control their emotions react impulsively, say things they regret, make decisions from fear, lose respect, lose opportunities, lose inner peace. People who master emotional control think clearly under pressure, stay calm in chaos, make long-term decisions, Command respect. Move with confidence. This is not personality. This is training. The lie you were taught about feelings. You were likely taught one of two lies. Always express your emotions. Always hide your emotions. Both are incomplete. Expression without control is emotional chaos. Suppression without understanding is emotional poison. True mastery is conscious expression. You decide when to feel, when to release, when to hold, when to act. That decision-making ability is emotional strength. The observer mind. The first skill in controlling your mind is learning to observe it. Most people are inside their thoughts. They believe every thought. They follow every emotional command. The observer stands above the thought. Instead of, I am anxious, you say internally, I notice anxiety is present. This creates distance. Distance creates control. You cannot control what you cannot observe. Why thoughts lie so convincingly? Thoughts feel true because they speak in your own voice. But not every thought deserves belief. Many thoughts are recycled fears, old programming, emotional reactions, survival responses, social conditioning. Your mind often confuses familiarity with truth. Controlling your mind means challenging automatic thoughts, not obeying them. Emotional triggers are teachers. Every emotional trigger is pointing to something unresolved. Triggers reveal insecurity, fear, attachment, ego wounds, unmet expectations. Avoiding triggers keeps you weak. Studying them makes you powerful. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to outgrow reactivity. Calm is a skill, not a personality trait. Some people appear calm because they train themselves, not because life is easier for them, not because they feel less, but because they regulate faster. Calmness is built through awareness, breath control, thought discipline, emotional labeling, repetition. This can be learned by anyone. Why control feels impossible at first. The moment you try to control your mind, you notice how chaotic it feels. This is not failure. This is awareness. You are not getting worse. You are finally seeing clearly. Control always feels harder before it feels easier. The goal is stability, not perfection. You will still feel emotions. You will still have negative thoughts. You will still experience fear. The difference is that they no longer own you. You become steady, grounded, clear. You stop being dragged. You start choosing. The foundation you are building. This part lays the foundation for everything that follows. Before discipline, before focus, before confidence, before success, you must master the inner world. Because a calm, controlled mind thinks clearly, acts intentionally, responds wisely, builds powerful habits, creates emotional freedom. Part 2. Understanding emotional triggers and mental patterns. Your emotions do not appear out of nowhere. Every reaction you experience, anger, anxiety, fear, guilt, frustration, excitement, is the result of a trigger meeting a pattern. If you want real control over your mind and emotions, this is where mastery begins. Not with suppression, not with pretending to be calm, but with awareness so sharp that emotional reactions lose their power before they take over. Most people live their lives emotionally hijacked. Something happens and they react instantly, raising their voice, shutting down, procrastinating, scrolling endlessly, lashing out, or escaping responsibility. They believe the emotion caused the reaction. But the truth is deeper than that. The real cause is a mental pattern that has been running on autopilot for years. Why emotional control starts with patterns, not willpower. You cannot outwill a deeply ingrained pattern. Willpower is temporary. Patterns are automatic. Think about how quickly emotions rise. One sentence from someone else. One unexpected message. One small failure. Within seconds your body tightens, your thoughts spiral, and your mood shift. There is no pause. No decision. No conscious choice. That speed tells you something important. This reaction is not being chosen, it is being triggered. Your mind is a prediction machine. It scans situations, compares them to past experiences, and instantly decides how to respond. If the pattern is fear, you feel anxiety. If the pattern is defense, you feel anger. If the pattern is avoidance, you feel resistance and procrastination. Until you understand your triggers and patterns, emotional control will always feel impossible. What an emotional trigger really is. An emotional trigger is not the event itself. It is the meaning your mind assigns to the event. Two people can experience the same situation and feel completely different emotions. One person sees criticism and feels attacked. Another sees feedback and feels motivated. One sees silence and feels rejected. Another sees silence and feels neutral. The difference is not the event. The difference is the story running in the mind. Triggers form early in life. They are built from past experiences, repeated emotional responses, and conclusions your mind made to protect you. At some point, your brain learned, when this happens, I must react like this. And it kept that rule. Over time, those rules become invisible. You stop noticing the pattern and only feel the emotion. The hidden loop that controls most people. Almost every emotional reaction follows this loop. Event, something happens. Interpretation, your mind assigns meaning. Emotion, a feeling arises. Behavior, you act from that feeling. Reinforcement, the pattern strengthens. Most people believe the loop starts at emotion. They say, I got angry, so I reacted. But anger was not the beginning. The interpretation was. For example, event, someone disagrees with you. Interpretation, they don't respect me. Emotion, anger. Behavior, defensiveness or aggression. Reinforcement, the mind learns that anger is protection. The more the loop repeats, the faster it runs. Eventually, interpretation happens so fast you don't even notice it. Emotion feels instant and uncontrollable. But once you slow the loop down, even slightly, control becomes possible. Emotional control is the skill of slowing the loop. You don't need to eliminate emotions. You need space between stimulus and response. That space is where control lives. And the way you create that space is by learning to spot your most common triggers, your default interpretations, your automatic emotional responses. When you can say, this feeling is familiar, you are no longer inside it, you are observing it. Observation weakens emotion. Identifying your core emotional triggers. Everyone has a few dominant triggers. These are the situations that consistently produce strong emotional reactions. Common triggers include feeling disrespected, feeling ignored, feeling judged, feeling controlled, feeling inadequate, feeling rejected, feeling overwhelmed. Pay attention to moments when your emotional reaction feels bigger than the situation. That is always a sign of an old pattern being activated. Ask yourself, what exactly set this off? What meaning did I assign to it? What am I afraid this situation confirms about me? The answer will reveal the pattern. The role of identity in emotional reactions. Your emotions are deeply tied to how you see yourself. If your identity is built on being competent, mistakes will trigger shame or anger. If your identity is built on being liked, rejection will trigger anxiety. If your identity is built on control, uncertainty will trigger fear. The mind defends identity aggressively. Any situation that threatens how you see yourself feels dangerous, even if it logically isn't. Your emotions rise to protect that identity. This is why emotional control requires identity awareness. When you loosen your attachment to a fragile identity, triggers lose their grip. Why suppressing emotions makes them stronger. Many people try to control emotions by pushing them down. This never works. Suppression teaches the mind that emotions are dangerous. When they arise again, they come back stronger, faster, and with more force. True control is not suppression, it is integration. You allow the emotion to exist without obeying it. You acknowledge it without feeding it. You feel it without letting it decide your actions. This approach rewires the brain over time. The mind learns that emotions are signals, not commands. Reframing, the most powerful tool for emotional mastery. Reframing means consciously changing the interpretation that creates the emotion. You don't deny reality. You choose a more useful meaning. Instead of, "This setback proves I'm failing," you choose, "This setback shows where I need to adjust." Instead of, "They're ignoring me because I'm not important," you choose, "I don't know their reasons, and I don't need to assume the worst." Reframing does not make you weak. It makes you mentally disciplined. Your mind becomes a tool, not a trap. Emotional regulation begins in the body. Your body reacts before your thoughts catch up. Heart rate increases. Muscles tighten. Breathing becomes shallow. These physical changes amplify emotions. Learning to regulate your body calms the mind. Slow breathing, relaxed posture, and grounded movement send a signal of safety to the brain. When the body feels safe, emotional intensity drops. This is not theory. It is biology. Control the body, and the mind follows. The practice that builds emotional strength. Each time you notice a trigger and choose not to react automatically, you strengthen emotional control. Each pause rewires your brain. Each moment of awareness builds resilience. You are training a skill, not fixing a flaw. Progress is not measured by never feeling emotions. It is measured by recovering faster and reacting less. The shift that changes everything. The goal is not to feel calm all the time. The goal is to remain self-directed regardless of emotion. When emotions rise and you remain steady, you gain confidence. When triggers appear and you stay conscious, you gain power. When reactions stop controlling you, your life begins to change. Emotional control is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming unshakable. Part 3. Mastering your thoughts and ending overthinking. Your thoughts shape your emotions long before you feel them. If emotions are the fire, thoughts are the spark. And if your mind is undisciplined, that spark can ignite chaos at any moment. This is why true emotional control is impossible without thought mastery. Most people believe they are thinking, but in reality they are being thought at. Ideas appear without invitation. Worries replay themselves. Imaginary conversations repeat. Regrets resurface. Fears forecast futures that do not exist. And the mind treats all of it as real. The result is exhaustion, anxiety, hesitation, and emotional instability. But here is the truth that changes everything. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. Once you understand this, control becomes possible. Why the mind loves to overthink. Overthinking is not a weakness. It is a survival mechanism that has gone unchecked. Your brain evolved to detect threat. It constantly asks, what could go wrong? What did I miss? What should I have done differently? What might happen next? The problem is that the modern world triggers this system constantly, even when there is no real danger. Social pressure, expectations, comparison, uncertainty, all of these keep the mind on high alert. When the mind lacks direction, it defaults to rumination. Overthinking is simply mental energy with no task. The difference between thinking and mental noise. Thinking is intentional. Mental noise is automatic. Thinking solves problems. Mental noise creates them. Thinking ends when action is chosen. Mental noise loops endlessly without resolution. Most emotional suffering comes not from events, but from uncontrolled mental replay. You relive the past. You rehearse the future. You narrate your life in a way that keeps you tense. Learning to tell the difference between useful thinking and mental noise is a critical skill. If a thought does not lead to clarity or action, it is not helping you. The observer position, where control begins. The moment you notice a thought, you are no longer trapped inside it. Awareness creates distance. Instead of saying, I am anxious, you learn to say, an anxious thought is appearing. Instead of, I'm overwhelmed, you shift to, My mind is producing overwhelming stories. This may sound small, but it is powerful. You move from identification to observation. Thoughts lose authority when they are observed instead of obeyed. Why fighting thoughts makes them stronger. Trying to stop thoughts directly is like trying to stop waves with your hand. The more you resist, the more force you create. The mind interprets resistance as importance. If you fight a thought, your brain assumes it matters, and it returns stronger. Control comes not from force, but from non-engagement. You let the thought pass without reacting to it. No arguing, no suppressing, no following, just noticing, and returning attention to the present. Attention is your real superpower. Thoughts survive on attention. What you feed grows. What you starve fades. If you constantly entertain negative thoughts, they become dominant. If you stop feeding them, they weaken over time. Attention is a limited resource. When you choose where it goes, you choose how you feel. This is why practices like focus, stillness, and intentional presence are so powerful. They train you to place attention on command. The skill of thought interruption. When a negative thought appears, you have 3 options. Follow it, fight it, redirect attention. The third option is mastery. You don't need to answer every thought. You don't need to solve every imagined problem. You can simply say internally, "Not useful right now," and shift attention to something grounding. Your breath, your body, the task in front of you. This interrupts the loop without conflict. Over time, the mind learns new habit. How to stop overthinking before it starts. Overthinking thrives in idle moments. A mind without direction will create problems to feel productive. Structure is emotional safety. Clear routines, defined goals, and physical movement reduce mental noise because the mind has something to do. When your day has intention, your thoughts follow. This is why disciplined action is not just about productivity, it is about mental peace. The role of environment in thought control. Your surroundings influence your thinking more than you realize. Clutter creates mental noise. Constant notifications fragment focus. Excessive information overloads the mind. Reducing input improves clarity. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for control. Protect your mental environment the way you protect your physical one. Replacing thought loops with questions. The mind loves statements. Statements feel final. Questions create movement. Instead of, "This is too hard," ask, "What is the next small step?" Instead of, "I can't control this," ask, "What part can I control right now?" Questions shift the mind from panic to problem solving. They turn emotional energy into direction. Mental discipline is built, not discovered. No one is born with a calm, focused mind. It is trained. Every time you redirect attention, you build strength. Every time you disengage from useless thoughts, you gain control. Every time you stay present, you sharpen clarity. Progress is invisible at first, but powerful over time. The mind becomes quieter. Thoughts become slower. Emotions become manageable. Not because life got easier, but because you became stronger. The inner shift that changes everything. You stop trying to control every thought. You start choosing which ones deserve attention. That shift creates peace. You don't need a silent mind. You need a disciplined one. And once your thoughts are under control, your emotions follow. Part 4. Emotional resilience and staying calm under pressure. Emotional control is not tested when life is quiet. It is tested when things go wrong. When pressure rises. When expectations collide with reality. When people disappoint you. When plans fail. When emotions surge faster than logic can respond. This is where most people lose control, not because they are weak, but because they have never trained for emotional pressure. Resilience is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain stable while emotion moves through you. Why pressure reveals the truth about emotional control. Anyone can stay calm when nothing is happening, but pressure compresses the mind. It shortens patience. It amplifies reaction. It removes comfort and exposes habit. Under pressure, you do not rise to your goals. You fall to your training. If your emotional system is untrained, pressure will hijack you. That is why resilience is not built in comfort. It is built in awareness, repetition, and discipline. The real reason emotions escalate under stress. Stress does not create emotions. It removes filters. When you are tired, overwhelmed, or afraid, your brain prioritizes speed over accuracy. It reacts before it evaluates. This is why people say things they regret, make impulsive decisions, or shut down completely under pressure. The emotional brain takes over when the rational brain is exhausted. Control begins by understanding this, not judging yourself for it. Slowing down the internal reaction time. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing reaction. It is about creating a pause. That pause is where choice lives. Between stimulus and response, there is a moment. In that moment, you either react automatically or act intentionally. Most people never train this moment. They let emotions decide for them. But the pause can be strengthened. The power of the breath in emotional regulation. Breathing is not just oxygen. It is a signal to the nervous system. Fast, shallow breathing tells your body you are under threat. Slow, controlled breathing tells your body you are safe. When emotions spike, your breath becomes chaotic without you noticing. Reclaiming control of your breath is the fastest way to reclaim control of your emotions. You do not need complicated technique. You need awareness. Slow inhale. Long exhale. This sends a message to the brain. Stand down. Emotional containment, not suppression. There is a dangerous misconception that emotional control means not feeling anything. That leads to emotional buildup, repression, and eventual explosion. True control means allowing emotion to exist without letting it dictate behavior. You can feel anger without becoming aggressive. You can feel sadness without collapsing. You can feel fear without freezing. Emotion is information, not a command. When you stop treating emotions as orders, they lose power. Training yourself to stay centered. Centering is the ability to return to your internal balance regardless of external chaos. This is not passive. It is trained. You train it by repeatedly bringing attention back to your breath, your posture, your presence. Your body anchors your mind. When emotions surge, the body tightens. Shoulders rise. Jaw clenches. Breath shortens. Relaxing the body sends a counter signal. The mind follows the body faster than the body follows the mind. The role of identity in emotional stability. People who lack emotional control often say, "That's just how I am. I'm emotional by nature. I can't help it." This is identity-based surrender. The moment you define yourself by emotion, you give it ownership over you. Instead, you adopt a new identity. I am someone who remains composed. I am someone who responds, not reacts. I am emotionally disciplined. Identity shapes behavior more than willpower. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. Emotional triggers and why they repeat. Triggers are unresolved emotional patterns. They repeat because the mind has not integrated the lesson. A trigger is not about the present moment, it is about stored emotional memory. When someone's words or actions ignite a strong reaction, it is rarely about them. It is about meaning. The mind attaches old pain to current events. Understanding this creates freedom. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this?" you ask, "Why did this affect me so deeply?" Awareness dissolves triggers over time. Detachment without disconnection. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means not attaching your emotional state to outcomes you cannot control. You still care. You still act. But you do not emotionally collapse when things deviate. This is inner independence. When your peace depends on external approval, success, or validation, it is fragile. When your peace comes from within, it is stable. Training calm through controlled discomfort. Resilience is strengthened by exposure. Avoiding discomfort weakens emotional tolerance. Facing discomfort builds capacity. This does not mean chasing pain. It means not running from challenge. Difficult conversations. Delaying gratification. Staying present during stress. Each time you remain composed under discomfort, you expand your emotional range. What once overwhelmed you becomes manageable. The difference between emotional awareness and emotional intelligence. Awareness is noticing emotion. Intelligence is responding wisely. Many people are aware but still reactive. Intelligence requires time, reflection, practice. You learn emotional intelligence by reviewing moments. Where did I react? What triggered me? How could I respond differently next time? This is not self-criticism. It is self-training. Inner calm is a skill, not a trait. Some people appear calm because they have practiced calm. They have trained their nervous system. They have learned not to panic at intensity. Calmness is built the same way strength is built, through repetition under load. The mind becomes steady when it has been tested and trained. Letting emotions pass without clinging. Emotions rise, peak, and fall if you let them. They only linger when you cling to them through thought. Replaying events. Rehearsing conversations. Imagining outcomes. This keeps emotions alive. When you stop feeding them, they dissolve naturally. You do not need to get rid of emotions. You need to stop holding on to them. The quiet confidence of emotional control. When you control your emotions, people feel it. You speak with clarity. You move with purpose. You remain grounded when others panic. This is not dominance. It is stability. And stability attracts trust, respect, and influence. Not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Part 5. Breaking emotional habits and rewiring your inner reactions. Most people believe their emotions are spontaneous. They are not. They are habits. Emotional reactions repeat not because situations repeat, but because patterns repeat inside you. The same trigger produces the same response because the brain has learned that response over time. Anger becomes automatic. Anxiety becomes familiar. Self-doubt becomes routine. And familiarity is mistaken for identity. But emotional habits can be changed, because anything learned can be unlearned. Why emotional habits feel so permanent? The brain is designed to conserve energy. Once it finds a reaction that feels familiar, it reuses it. This is efficiency, not fate. The problem is that the brain does not judge whether a habit is helpful. It only cares whether it is reliable. If reacting with fear once helped you avoid pain, the brain remembers. If withdrawing protected you emotionally, the brain stores it. If anger gave you control, the brain repeats it. Over time, these responses feel like who you are. They are not. They are neural shortcuts. The emotional loop that keeps you stuck. Every emotional habit follows a loop. Trigger, interpretation, emotion, reaction, reinforcement. The trigger is external. The interpretation is internal. The emotion is chemical. The reaction is behavioral. The reinforcement locks it in. Most people focus on controlling the trigger. That never works. You cannot control life. Control comes from interrupting the loop. Awareness is the first break in the chain. You cannot change a habit you are not aware of. The moment you notice, I always react this way. This feeling shows up every time. I'm repeating an old pattern. You create space. That space weakens automation. Awareness turns reaction into choice. Not immediately, but gradually. Emotional reactions are learned responses, not truth. An emotional reaction feels convincing because it is intense. But intensity is not accuracy. Feeling something strongly does not make it correct. The brain uses emotion to push you into action, not to reveal truth. Once you understand this, emotions stop being unquestionable authorities. They become signals to examine, not commands to obey. Rewriting emotional meaning. What you feel is not caused by events, it is caused by meaning. Two people can experience the same situation and feel completely different. Why? Different interpretations. If you want to change emotional habits, you must change the meaning you attach to situations. This does not mean lying to yourself. It means choosing interpretations that empower rather than imprison you. Instead of, "This always happens to me," shift to, "This is uncomfortable, but temporary." Instead of, "I can't handle this," shift to, "This is challenging, and I'm learning to stay present." Language shapes emotion. Internal dialogue trains emotional response. The importance of delayed reaction. Habitual emotions demand immediate expression. Breaking habits requires delay. You do not need to respond the moment you feel something. Delay weakens impulse. Even a few seconds of pause allows the rational mind to re-engage. The more you practice delaying reaction, the more control you reclaim. Impulse loses strength when it is not rewarded with action. Conditioning new emotional responses. To replace an emotional habit, you must install a new response. Not suppression. Not denial. Replacement. When a familiar emotion arises, you pause. You breathe. You choose a different response. At first, it feels unnatural. That is good. Unfamiliar means new neural pathways are forming. Repetition makes them stronger. Emotional reconditioning happens after the moment. Change does not only happen during emotional moments, it happens after. Reflection rewires the brain. After a reaction, ask, "What did I feel? What triggered it? How did I respond? What would I choose next time?" This is mental training, not self-criticism. The brain learns through review. Each reflection weakens the old pattern and strengthens awareness. Why you must stop judging your emotions. Judgment fuels emotional cycles. When you judge yourself for feeling something, you add a second emotion, shame, frustration, or guilt. This compounds the problem. Emotions are not failures. They are feedback. Treat them with neutrality. Observe, learn, adjust. Detachment accelerates growth. The nervous system remembers what the mind forgets. Emotional habits live in the nervous system, not just thought. This is why intellectual understanding alone is not enough. You must train your body to respond differently. This happens through controlled breathing, relaxed posture, calm physical presence. When the body stays calm, emotional intensity decreases. The body teaches the mind stability, creating emotional consistency through routine. Chaos breeds emotional instability. Structure creates safety. Daily routines regulate emotional baseline. Consistent sleep, movement, silence, and focus reduce reactivity. The mind becomes calmer when it knows what to expect. Discipline is emotional self-care. Why small wins rewire emotional confidence. Confidence is emotional evidence. When you keep promises to yourself, small ones, the brain updates its belief system. You stop emotionally doubting yourself. Action rewires emotion faster than thinking ever will. Consistency builds emotional trust. Letting go of old emotional identities. Some emotions become part of how you see yourself. I'm anxious. I'm sensitive. I'm reactive. These labels freeze growth. You are not an emotion. You are the one experiencing it. The moment you release emotional identity, flexibility returns. You become adaptable instead of predictable. Emotional freedom is gradual, then sudden. At first, nothing seems to change. You still feel triggered. You still react sometimes. Then one day you notice a pause where there used to be impulse, calm where there used to be panic, choice where there used to be habit. That is rewiring. It is quiet. It is powerful. It is permanent when practiced. And once emotional habits begin to dissolve, the mind becomes clearer, steadier, and more disciplined, ready to move deeper into self-command and inner authority, where control is no longer effort, but state. Part 6. Mastering Self-Command and Unshakable Inner Discipline. The next level of emotional mastery moves beyond reaction and habit. It is no longer enough to pause, breathe, or reframe. True power lives in self-command, the ability to direct your mind and emotions with precision, consistently, regardless of circumstance. Self-command is the ultimate freedom. It is the state where your mind, emotions, and attention all align. It is where you decide your experience, not the world, not people, not event. The untrained mind reacts. The disciplined mind chooses. Why self-command is rare. Most people live unconsciously. Life happens to them. Challenges push them. Criticism shakes them. Stress overwhelms them. Their moods fluctuate like the wind. Self-command is rare because it requires constant awareness, deliberate practice, and courage. It asks you to see yourself honestly, to acknowledge emotional triggers without running, to confront discomfort instead of avoiding it. It is easier to blame, to react, to escape. It is harder to stand steady and move with intention. Yet all human potential flows from this discipline. Attention, the core of inner discipline. Attention is your most valuable currency. Where attention goes, energy flows. Where energy flows, emotions and thoughts follow. Most people scatter attention unconsciously. Social media, gossip, worry, overthinking, distraction, avoidance. The mind becomes fragmented. Emotional control fades. To master your inner world, you must discipline attention. Focus is not an act. It is a habit, a lifestyle. Every time you return your mind to purpose, you strengthen your inner authority. Attention is the leash for your emotions. It decides which thoughts survive and which fade. Control your attention, and the mind becomes your tool rather than your tyrant. The power of initiating action first. Emotions often paralyze because the mind waits for the right feeling to act. Motivation, inspiration, mood, these are unreliable. True self-command begins when you act independently of feeling. You initiate movement, work, thought, or conversation before your emotions give permission. When you act first, fear loses authority. Anxiety loses momentum. Overthinking loses its grip. Action rewires the mind. It teaches the nervous system that you lead, not the reactive instinct. Creating emotional immunity through micro-exercises. Self-command is built like a muscle. Small, deliberate exercises repeated daily. Pause and observe. Notice a trigger, breathe, and refrain from immediate reaction. Single task mastery. Focus on one task without distraction for a set period. Attention builds control. Controlled discomfort. Face minor discomforts intentionally. Cold shower, intense focus, delayed gratification. Emotional tolerance grows. Thought interruption. Catch negative or anxious thoughts and redirect attention to the present. Repeat daily. Each micro-exercise rewires neural pathways. The mind learns a new default. Response over reaction, presence over chaos. How inner dialogue shapes command. Your inner voice is either your ally or your captor. Most people allow unconscious self-talk to dominate. I can't handle this. I'm too emotional. This always happens to me. Self-command requires deliberate dialogue. I notice fear, but I act anyway. I am observing this emotion without obeying it. I choose focus over distraction. Repetition of disciplined self-talk is the internal scaffolding of control. Words precede behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. Identity shapes life. The role of values in sustaining control. Without a strong internal compass, self-command is inconsistent. Values anchor behavior. They provide clarity when emotion clouds judgment. Ask yourself, what principles guide my life? What kind of person do I intend to be in every circumstance? When values are clear, reactionary impulses lose their authority. Emotional storms may rise, but the foundation does not shift. Your inner discipline grows in proportion to the clarity and strength of your values. Stress as a training tool, not a threat. Life will not stop testing you. Emotional mastery does not remove stress. It teaches you to navigate stress intelligently. Pressure becomes feedback rather than threat. Emotional peaks are training opportunities. You learn to remain grounded while the world rages around you. This perspective shift is revolutionary. It turns life's challenges into stepping stones for power instead of triggers for chaos. Deliberate focus, building the fortress of the mind. A mind scattered across endless distractions is a vulnerable mind. Deliberate focus is the fortress of emotional and mental strength. Build it through morning routines that prime attention, strategic planning of mental energy, limiting input from negative or trivial sources, periodic silence to reset clarity. The more disciplined your focus, the more resilient your emotions. The more resilient your emotions, the less life can unbalance you. The practice of emotional forecasting. Self-command is also predictive. You anticipate how situations might trigger you, and you prepare. Example: you know a meeting will spark irritation. Instead of waiting to react, you preemptively center your mind, remind yourself of values, and plan your response. This practice turns emotional storms into calculated exercises in awareness, not chaotic responses to circumstance. Consistency, the keystone of inner authority. Discipline is invisible when practiced consistently. It feels ordinary. It requires repetition, daily awareness of thought and emotion, repeated pauses before reaction, regular practice of attention and focus, commitment to values over impulse. These habits compound into unshakable emotional authority. Self-command is a product of consistency. One perfect day does not create mastery, but consistent repetition over months and years transforms the mind, rewires neural patterns, and reshapes emotional experience permanently. Living from inner command. When you achieve self-command, life changes profoundly. You are less swayed by others' opinions. You are less reactive to criticism. You navigate challenges with clarity. You make decisions rooted in calm logic rather than reactive emotion. You operate from a state of power, not victimhood. Self-command is freedom. It is the bridge between emotional resilience and true mental mastery. It allows the mind and emotions to become partners in purposeful action, not forces to be feared or avoided. Part 7. Advanced Techniques for Rewiring Reactions and Mastering Stress. Once self-command becomes a practice, the next step is refining your control under pressure, rewiring reactions, and sustaining emotional equilibrium even in the most challenging situations. This is where true mastery begins. Not just pausing before you react, but proactively reshaping how your mind and body respond to the world. The brain rewrites itself through repetition. Neuroscience has proven that the brain is plastic. Every repeated thought, every repeated reaction, creates physical pathways in your neural network. Old patterns, fear, anger, anxiety, overreaction, are pathways your brain travels automatically. New patterns, calm, deliberate responses, measured thought, strategic action, can replace old ones. But it requires repetition and intentionality. Every pause you take before reacting strengthens new neural circuit. Every time you breathe, ground yourself, or observe your thoughts instead of obeying them, your brain becomes more resilient. Emotional mastery is literally a structural transformation of your mind. Understanding stress as a signal, not a threat. Stress is inevitable. Life will test you. But stress is only dangerous if you interpret it as a threat rather than a signal. The body responds to stress by releasing adrenaline, cortisol, and other chemicals designed for short-term survival. This response can feel overwhelming if uncontrolled, but it is not a judgment against you. Instead of fearing stress, reframe it as information. Energy is rising. Attention is heightened. Focus is available. Stress signals opportunity, a chance to practice control, test your discipline, and refine your reactions. Emotional habits under pressure. Every person has default emotional habit. Some express frustration through anger. Others withdraw. Some panic. Others obsess. The The difference between those who remain controlled and those who do not is preparedness. Preparedness means recognizing your habitual reactions before the event occurs, training new, healthier responses through repetition, using deliberate attention and breath to regulate the body, strengthening the pause between trigger and action. This transforms habitual reactivity into intentional behavior. Anchoring the mind and body. Under pressure, the mind and body often decouple. Thoughts race, muscles tense, and emotions surge uncontrollably. Anchoring restores connection. Techniques for anchoring include grounding through posture. Stand or sit with alignment, shoulders relaxed, feet planted. Controlled breathing. Slow inhale, long exhale, counting silently. Focus on sensations. Notice touch, temperature, and presence to bring attention back to the now. These physical anchors stabilize emotions and sharpen cognitive clarity. Reprogramming reactions with visualization. Visualization is more than motivation, it rewires the brain. By imagining yourself handling triggers calmly and intentionally, the mind begins to treat it as familiar territory. Steps for effective visualization. Recall a common emotional trigger. Imagine the event as vividly as possible. See yourself responding calmly and deliberately. Repeat the visualization daily, imagining variations of the trigger. Over time, the brain begins to anticipate deliberate responses rather than reactive ones. Emotional reactions lose dominance because your mind has rehearsed calm control. Anchoring emotional confidence through micro-moments. Emotional mastery is reinforced in micro-moments. Pausing before responding to a colleague. Waiting a few seconds before answering a stressful text. Taking a breath before addressing a difficult conversation. Choosing patience when minor frustrations arise. These small moments compound. Each pause signals the nervous system that you are in control, creating a foundation for larger emotional challenges. Reframing threats into opportunities. Perception shapes reality. What feels threatening often contains growth if approached intentionally. Consider conflict as a chance to practice composure. Criticism as feedback for growth. Failure as data for refinement. When you consciously reframe challenging events as opportunities to exercise control, the mind becomes resilient and proactive rather than reactive and fearful. The science of neurochemical regulation. Emotions are chemical. Understanding their timing and triggers empowers control. Cortisol rises during stress. Recognize the spike to avoid impulsive reactions. Adrenaline prepares for rapid action. Channel it into deliberate movement. Serotonin and dopamine influence mood. Cultivate them through gratitude, focus, and intentional achievement. By observing and leveraging neurochemistry, emotional mastery becomes scientific, not just philosophical. The role of self-talk under pressure. In high-stress moments, internal dialogue is your strongest tool. Most people allow unconscious chatter to dominate. I can't handle this. This is too much. They're judging me. Instead, deliberate self-talk creates a scaffold for calm. I notice this stress, and I remain grounded. I choose my response. I am capable, composed, and focused. Repetition of positive, authoritative internal dialogue rewires your mind to respond with clarity rather than panic. Emotional practice in daily life. Emotional mastery is continuous. Practice should not be reserved for moments of crisis. It is integrated into daily life. Morning awareness routines. Regular reflection on triggers and reactions. Mindful attention to thoughts, actions, and emotional cues. Journaling emotional experiences and deliberate responses. Consistency transforms awareness into instinct. Calmness and discipline become the default state. Emotional equilibrium, the ultimate reward. When these techniques are practiced over time, emotional surges are observed, not obeyed. Reactions are deliberate, not impulsive. Stress is met with clarity, not panic. Daily life becomes a training ground for resilience. Equilibrium is not a personality trait. It is the product of deliberate, repeated mastery of mind and emotion. This level of control unlocks profound freedom. When you can remain steady regardless of external chaos, you operate from a place of power, influence, and wisdom. Part 8. Deepening emotional intelligence and cultivating unstoppable inner calm. Mastering emotions is not a one-time achievement. It is an ongoing process of refinement, observation, and deliberate growth. By this stage, you are no longer reacting blindly, you are intentionally shaping your emotional experience. The next step is emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, anticipate, and strategically respond to the world of feelings, both within yourself and in others. Emotional intelligence, the bridge between awareness and action. Awareness allows you to see your emotions. Self-command allows you to control them. Emotional intelligence allows you to leverage them for influence, connection, and growth. At its core, emotional intelligence has three pillars. Self-awareness, recognizing your own emotional states and their causes. Self-regulation, maintaining stability and deliberate choice despite emotional surges. Empathy and social understanding, recognizing emotions in others and responding with clarity and appropriateness. Developing these pillars transforms emotional mastery into practical power. It is no longer about simply surviving your feelings. It is about navigating life with precision, influence, and adaptability. Recognizing subtle triggers before they escalate. True mastery requires noticing micro-triggers, the tiny, almost invisible cues that precede major emotional responses. A shift in tone during conversation. A subtle look of disapproval. A slight delay in response. A personal thought that stirs discomfort. Most people miss these cues. They allow them to escalate into full-blown reactions. You will not. By training yourself to detect triggers early, you gain control before the surge occurs. Your awareness intercepts automatic patterns, giving you the power to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously. Reframing emotional momentum. Emotions are momentum. Left unchecked, they escalate, grow louder, and dominate thought and behavior. Reframing is the tool that allows you to redirect emotional momentum. Anxiety becomes anticipation. Frustration becomes curiosity. Disappointment becomes insight. Reframing does not ignore reality. It transforms perception, turning emotion into fuel for constructive action. The art of emotional detachment without indifference. Detachment is often misunderstood as emotional coldness. It is not. Detachment is freedom from being hijacked by external circumstances, while still engaging fully with life. When practiced consistently, you feel emotions fully but do not obey them blindly. You respond with clarity instead of impulsivity. You observe situations objectively while remaining human, compassionate, and engaged. Detachment strengthens resilience and stabilizes your inner equilibrium. Advanced self-regulation technique. Beyond breathing and pausing, advanced self-regulation requires multi-layered strategies. Physiological regulation. Align posture, relax muscles, regulate breath, and calm the nervous system. Cognitive reframing. Identify automatic thoughts, challenge assumptions, and replace unhelpful narrative. Behavioral anchoring. Develop small, repeatable actions that maintain emotional balance, such as counting, stepping back, or journaling. Visualization. Anticipate stressful events and rehearse calm, constructive responses in vivid detail. These techniques, practiced daily, rewire the brain for automatic emotional resilience, turning once automatic reactions into deliberate, constructive behavior. Emotional flow. Riding the wave instead of drowning. Emotions are waves. Resistance amplifies them. Submission submerges you. Mastery comes from riding the wave. Observe the rise. Feel the intensity without fear. Guide it with conscious action. Allow it to subside naturally. This creates a rhythm of internal stability. You are no longer buffeted by emotional storms. You move with them, using them as power rather than being consumed. Building unshakable calm in the face of conflict. Conflict is one of the most common emotional stressors. Most people react defensively, emotionally, and impulsively. Calm in conflict is trained, not innate. Anchor in values rather than opinions. Listen more than you speak. Pause before responding. Respond from clarity, not emotion. Conflict becomes a practice field for composure. Each challenge you navigate without losing control reinforces the brain's pathways for calm, deliberate action. Empathy as a tool for emotional mastery. Understanding others' emotions is essential for maintaining control. Emotional intelligence is not just self-directed, it is relational. Empathy allows you to predict reactions before they occur, respond strategically rather than reactively, maintain influence without resorting to emotional escalation. By observing how others feel and act, you anticipate triggers and guide interactions toward productive outcomes. Daily practices for deepening emotional intelligence. Consistent exercises strengthen mastery. Morning reflection. Identify potential triggers for the day and plan responses. Mindful observation. Notice thoughts, emotions, and physiological cues throughout the day. Evening review. Analyze situations where emotions arose and evaluate responses for improvement. Active empathy exercises. Observe others' emotions without judgment and imagine their perspective. These practices compound over time, making calmness, clarity, and strategic response automatic. Emotional mastery as a lifestyle. At this stage, emotional mastery is no longer a technique. It becomes a lifestyle. Your mind is clear and disciplined. Your emotions are informative, not controlling. Your body and breath support calm. Your attention is focused, precise, and purposeful. Your interactions with others are guided by awareness and strategy. You carry inner calm into every decision, conversation, and challenge. Life does not dictate your experience. You navigate it with skill, choice, and power. Preparing for ultimate integration. Part 8 lays the groundwork for the final stages of emotional and mental mastery. Sustained emotional equilibrium, automatic resilience under any circumstance, and the ability to operate with unwavering inner authority. The practices you cultivate now, observation, anticipation, regulation, empathy, and reflection, will serve as the foundation for the final level of control, where emotional mastery becomes permanent, effortless, and integrated into every aspect of life. Part 9. Permanent integration and unshakable emotional resilience. You have come far. You have learned awareness, self-command, emotional intelligence, and advanced techniques for mastering reactions under pressure. Now, the final step is integration, making control permanent, effortless, and fully embodied in every moment of life. Emotional mastery as a way of life. True mastery is not a tool you pull out in times of stress. It is a state you live in. It is woven into your mind, your body, your attention, and your habits. Every thought, every breath, every reaction is aligned with your chosen state of calm and deliberate action. You no longer need to force control, because control has become your default operating system. Internalizing awareness. Awareness is the foundation of mastery. By now, noticing thoughts, feelings, and triggers is second nature. But integration requires deep internalization. You notice emotions not as events to react to, but as signals. What is this emotion trying to tell me? Does it require action, reflection, or release? Is this habitual, or is it a conscious choice? Internalized awareness allows you to intercept automatic reactions before they even arise, keeping your mind calm, clear, and unshakable. Automatic emotional regulation. The ultimate sign of mastery is when regulation becomes automatic. You do not consciously tell yourself to breathe, pause, or reframe. The nervous system knows how to respond. Emotional surges are naturally modulated. Anxiety, anger, and frustration lose dominance because the body and mind are trained to flow with life without losing equilibrium. This is achieved not through rare acts of will, but through repeated, deliberate practice over time. Neural pathways are rewired. Emotional patterns are replaced. Stability becomes instinctive. Permanent rewiring of emotional habit. All habitual reactions have been addressed by this point. Fear replaced with courage. Anxiety replaced with calm anticipation. Frustration replaced with constructive focus. Anger replaced with measured assertion. This is not temporary. The brain has learned new defaults, and these new pathways have been reinforced through reflection, repetition, and intentional action. Triggers no longer dominate your behavior. Instead, you shape the response before the emotion takes hold. Integration of mind, body, and attention. Emotional mastery is holistic. Mind, body, and attention are synchronized. Thoughts are deliberate, focused, and rational. Body cues are recognized and leveraged for calm. Attention is placed intentionally, not scattered. This integration ensures that every moment of life flows with clarity, purpose, and equilibrium. Emotional storms may arise, but the internal system remains anchored, transforming stress into growth. At this stage, stress is no longer an enemy. It becomes a teacher, a test, and a catalyst for growth. Challenges and pressure no longer trigger panic. They become opportunities to exercise mastery. Each stressful event strengthens your resilience further. Life no longer shakes you, it polishes you. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive. You are not controlled by events, you navigate them. Emotional intelligence as a habit. Integration of emotional intelligence is now unconscious. Empathy allows precise understanding of others without being swept away. Strategic responses replace impulsive reactions. Social interactions are guided by awareness, clarity, and emotional composure. Your emotional intelligence creates influence, connection, and harmony, not manipulation, but resonance. People sense your stability. They respond to your clarity. Mastery of subtle triggers. Subtle triggers that once caused agitation are now neutral. You notice them but do not react automatically. The slight impatience in someone's tone no longer triggers irritation. A delayed message no longer sparks anxiety. Minor setbacks no longer produce frustration. The mind has learned automatic recalibration, and emotional equilibrium becomes the default. Living with effortless calm. Effortless calm is the hallmark of final mastery. You do not try to suppress emotion. You do not force attention. You do not rehearse responses constantly. Instead, your internal system has learned. Observe, don't obey. Pause, don't react. Focus, don't scatter. Align, don't resist. This is not temporary peace. This is permanent internal authority, visible in the way you move, speak, and think. Integration of values, identity, and action. Your values, your identity, and your actions are fully aligned. You act in accordance with principles, not impulses. Your identity reinforces calm, clarity, and resilience. Every action reflects mastery, not emotional reaction. Life itself becomes the practice of mastery, and mastery becomes effortless living. The final transformation. Emotional control, mental clarity, and inner authority are now inseparable from your being. You respond with precision, not habit. You act with purpose, not compulsion. You remain steady amidst chaos. You move from internal strength rather than external conditions. This is the ultimate transformation, a mind and heart trained to navigate life with unshakable clarity, resilience, and presence. At this point, you no longer just control your mind and emotions. You command them. They serve you rather than you serving them. You are free. You are strong. You are deliberate. The journey does not end because mastery is a living, ongoing practice. But at this stage, emotional and mental authority are permanent, integrated, and embodied. You have built the mind and heart of a person who is unshakable in life, unstoppable in action, and unbreakable in spirit.